Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of SuperFantaFi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Percy Jackson and the Olympians, Season 1, Episode 4. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So we had that opening where Percy's mom is trying to teach him how to swim, but he kind of doesn't want to do it. And for her, it's like, I want to teach you just in case like this might come in handy one day. Once again, every little thing his mom's ever done is to prepare him for what the world's going to have in store for him, as not only are you a demigod, you are a forbidden child on top of that. So obviously it's going to because they're all forbidden children, aren't they? But the real forbidden ones are like the big three, right? So but the fact of the matter is that she's pushing so hard because she needs him to be ready. And it makes sense. It's like, right, you are literally a child of Poseidon. You would never have to worry about water because water is your domain. It'd be like Aquaman being afraid or being worried about water. It's the same equivalency. So, but once again, that dream gets contorted into a nightmare. And whoever it is reaching out to him, telling him, like, right, you thought that just being a forbidden child draws enough attention, but being a forbidden hero brings about doom. So Percy ended up talking to Annabeth and eventually Grover. It was specifically this interesting conversation he had with Annabeth, because it's that thing of, I don't understand the way you guys talk. Because once again, he even brings up, he's only been like he found out about being a demigod. Yes, he's been a demigod his entire life. He's only found out about it, past couple days. And my question has been, how long has everyone else known? I mean, Annabeth has known for obviously years, but like, did she know all of her life? Did she only know some of her life? Like, what point in her life did she find out, I mean, I'm sure it's like, obviously like a very mystical version of the conversation of finding out, like, oh, when do you tell your child they were adopted, and kind of let them know where they came from type of situation. So it's like a more mystical, twist on that typical very normal conversation. But for Percy, it's just like, I don't understand your ways, the way you're like willing to offer to the gods, and just you hold them in such high regard, and I just don't get why. Because for him, they're not worth it. Because in his case, it's like, right, my dad has never done anything for me. Who was by my side? My human mom, always being there for me. She stepped in when my god of a father never did. He's like, I had to beat up Clarice just for him to even acknowledge that he's my own father. That's messed up. And for her, she believes, like, no, they have their way. She even says, like, the effed up thing is, it isn't just the gods do it like that, but at least, and I think that's kind of the sad perspective on it, where Annabeth's like, at least with the gods, you know what time it is. You know what the rules are. And humans, they'll placate you. They'll hide behind these guises. At least gods are up front. You know from the beginning what the deal is, I mean, and that's also, like, Annabeth's way of dealing with it. It's like your mom being distant, and you're doing everything you can to prove yourself to her, because it's not just to prove it to her, it's about proving it to yourself. But by proving it to yourself, you're proving it to her. It's your justification. Because we find out how Athena rolls when it comes to children is, you're a thought in her mind, and she decides to gift it to a human that she feels connected to, which is like, sure, there's something sweet there, but also at the same time, it's super messed up. It's like, oh, no, I'm blessing you with this gift, a gift that I won't be in her life. And she's like, yeah, my father, I know he loved me. He did treat me like a gift until he met another person and they had children of their own. And that ends up being that complicated conversation of, like, an adopted child. Once again, this isn't applicable for all cases, but it is a situation of, yeah, you might have been first, but you will always be, hey, I'm not yours by blood. Like, you have a more direct connection versus this child that just ethereally popped up and was just kind of blessed to you. It's like, does her dad know that she was a gift from Athena, or does he just think, like, oh, like, this baby was left on my doorstep type of thing and I adopted her? But at the end of the day, she kind of felt more like a burden to her family, like she didn't belong anymore, because she wasn't really part of the family. It's like, right, I was kind of taken in by my dad, but that's why she was on her own. She ran away. But the thing is, I'm curious to see how this plays out. Annabeth might find out that maybe, just maybe, I mean, she was on the road for like years. Cause didn't she say she left when she was like 7? So she's like, it's been like 5 years because they're all like 12. So, well, except for Grover, who's really like what 24, 25 is what he said in episode 1. But it makes you wonder, does her father not care about her, or has he been looking for her the entire time and she just doesn't know that? You know? Maybe. I mean, the fact is 5 years, but I mean, it's like, right, you're on the road, you're traveling, like, you're also been, like, mixed up in this mystical world, so maybe that's kind of hidden your presence even more. But does make you wonder, like, has he been looking for her in this entire time, and she just thinks he hasn't. It's like, oh, he has his own family, he doesn't need me. So I'm interested to find out about that, because that could be an interesting shift perspective for her, where it's like, oh, I turned away the one person who does care about me because I thought he didn't care about me anymore, and all I've been doing is focusing on this mother who keeps me at a distance, you know? I mean, that's also adding more motivation for why she goes above and beyond for Athena, because she feels like Athena's all she has. She's like, well, I don't have my dad. Yeah, he loved me, but love was conditional. All love is conditional, kind of from her perspective. It's just at least the gods are upfront about what they want and what they expect for their love and attention, you know? Well, their love, your attention. You giving them attention type is what I'm saying. There was also the conversation about there not being many centaurs left in the world because they've been hunted to borderline. Not they didn't use that word, but it feel like they're edging towards that conversation of borderline extinction, because it's like, oh, humans have hunted them because 1,000 years ago the god of nature Pan disappeared, and that's what every satyr like is chosen to be a searcher. And Ferdinand, who we learned about last episode, who was a victim of Medusa's, was one of those searchers as well. It's an honor to be chosen to do that, to go out and find Pan. That's their mission. But no satyr who's taken that mission as a searcher has ever come back. And ergo, like, you know, Ferdinand's situation. I am, once again, it becomes that conversation of, once again, we know there's a mystical barrier between the human realm and the magic world. And so when people are hunting what they look at probably as just normal animals, what they're really hunting are centaurs. That's probably what it is. There's a lot of creatures that seem like normal animals to regular humans that end up just being more magical creatures. In fact, that kind of strikes a chord with Grover, because he's probably witnessed them. We haven't really dived into Grover's circumstances too much. He hasn't really talked about himself. I mean, because how much does Percy really know about Grover, you know? I mean, there's certain aspects of his personality and who he is, but maybe there's a little bit more to it. Like, yeah, he doesn't like animals getting hurt. Makes sense considering his circumstances, but I think just in general, probably satyrs are a lot closer with animals in nature. Not just because they're in the mix of it themselves, but just that is just the nature of who they are as well. But to no surprise, their latest threat ends up finding them while they're on the train, and it ends up being, well, first and foremost, a police officer steps to him, which I'm like, hey, I recognize that actor. I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but I know, like, he played that super important doctor that in Smallville that the team is connected to. Funny enough, he was actually in Man of Steel as well, which I thought that was kind of neat. He didn't play the same character. I think he was just a military dude in Man of Steel, but that casting seemed like that was like on purpose. But either way, when it's all said and done, like, I've seen that actor in some things, and I don't know his name off the top of my head. But apparently their room gets trashed, like the cabin that they're staying in on the train, and they get blamed for it. And it's like, oh yeah, this witness being like, oh, she heard children's voices. You're like, all right, this is a setup. Like, what's this all about? And because she wanted to isolate the children, and it turns out she's Echidna, which I've heard the name because there's actual animals. I was like, isn't there an actual animal named an echidna? And it's like, yes, it is. But it seems like the name probably stems from echidna from Greek mythology. But I feel like maybe that's why, because I kept hearing the name echidna. I was like, why do I feel like I'm so familiar with that? But I'm like, maybe I'm thinking of the animal. I've heard associate with the animal. I don't think in a Greek lore sense. But she's a mother. Because when they were like, oh, she's a mother of monsters, I was like, Lilith? And it's like, no, I was like, what is Lilith from? It's like, right. That's not from any, like, it is from mythology, but it's not, it's more religious well, I mean, all mythology kind of ties into religion, but I was like, I think it was like Christian and Jewish mythology because she's supposed to be like Adam's first wife. I think it was what's supposed to be the whole situation, right? But yeah, like she's traditionally like the mother of monsters, so that's why I was conflating her. Like I said, I don't think I was aware of Echidna from the Greek lore perspective. But what I thought was so interesting is obviously like her little pet with her. We end up ultimately find out was a chimera, which I wasn't expecting that particular design because I was like, because the one I immediately think of, which I think is based on a more traditional design, is the whole if you've ever played Final Fantasy X, it's a regular enemy in Final Fantasy X, the Chimera. You know, the whole like, I think they specifically say like, I know it's got the snake tail, it's got the lion head. I think it said it had a goat head and a bird head, eagle head, or a body. Like it has it's an amalgamation of like different things. She kind of does a lot of multi-head things, don't she? Because one of the other things I was thinking of, I was like, doesn't she do a two-headed dog? Like I know there's Cerberus, the three-headed dog, which apparently is also one of hers as well. Understandable, but I was like, doesn't there a two-headed? But the one I was thinking of is Orthos from Persona, I believe. Yeah, if I remember correctly, yeah. So I was like, because I knew I was but it's like that's not the Chimera, but even the Chimera is kind of depicted differently in different things. I mean, everyone has their interpretation of it, but I think Final Fantasy X's version is probably more accurate to what it's probably described as in more traditional Greek mythology, maybe? I don't know. Because we do see it later on, it does kind of open up its neck like almost like a specifically like a cobra does. Like it, I don't know what you call that when it like flaps open a little bit like a cobra. It does that, but it doesn't have like the multi-head thing. It just looks like, I mean, because I love in its view to the regular world, it looks just like a doll. That's always an interesting thing of what are people seeing when that thing's like bashing down the train door, because we see that family just feel the train rock a little bit because this thing is massive. It turns out it looks like a puppy to the regular, discerning human. But what about those cops? Did they get chomped on by that thing, or did it just like walk past them and they're just like, huh, what was that? And then they kind of glaze over the destruction, like, oh, what happened? Oh, did that dog do it? Nah, it couldn't be. Like, how does, once again, that haze that exists over the human world, like how does that, like, we haven't really had an opportunity to fully see how that really works for humans, It's just like, hey, you don't see this thing for what it is, sure, but all the other stuff around it does register. It does happen. You just don't associate it with the thing, because like later on a car flips in the middle of the street and people are there witnessing it, but no one's going to see the chimera for what it really is. But either way, Echidna was kind of making this whole thing of like, oh, I'm viewed as a monster, even saying like, right, my grandmother is your great grandmother, that we're kind of like family, and even saying like, oh, that's what this has always been. It's kind of been a family story. It's like, oh yeah, like the gods tend to be the like biggest like celestial based like family dramas you ever see, the show Lucifer kind of shows you how the Celestials kind of get down when it comes to the family drama, especially in the mommy daddy issue department when it comes to Lucifer, well as the rest of his siblings. But yeah, once again, just like the gods being who and what they are, and her perspective is that the real monsters are demigods. It's like, oh, you're violent, you're kind of this unnatural thing existing, so you're more the problem that needs to be dealt with. Because it's not even like she's coming after him for the bolt. It's like, well, you were there, like, but at no point is she asking for the bolt anymore. It's just like, oh, I'm gonna feed you to my chimera. My little darling is like a growing baby, needs to eat, needs to learn how to hunt. It's like, yeah, it wasn't even about the master bolt anymore. I guess it's like you noticed they didn't have the master bolt. You're like, yeah, I don't care. I'll hunt you regardless. So, because demigods in particular are seen, and it makes you wonder, do a lot of beings in that world view demigods that same way? Is like, are you seeing this kind of like a bad sign or an omen, or I mean, you're a sign that attracts trouble? That could be, that could be seen and viewed that way. But nevertheless, they managed to get off the train and end up going to the Arches in Missouri because, hey, it's also considered an Athena temple because it was made in her name. Obviously, it's meant to kind of worship her because it's like, right, it's just as tall as it is wide by like the same degrees, because it's pure math, and that's kind of a respect and worship to Athena. Obviously, humans have added their own tribute to it because of the museum and the hunted animals and the history of the. Obviously, once again, that didn't sit well with Grover. But they were initially going to try and ask Athena for help when it came to Percy's circumstances because it seemed like he was poisoned from the sting from the chimera. But the problem is they learn is that Athena, which just should have been a sanctuary so no monster could come in, but the echidna and her chimera are able to because Athena turned her back on them because of the head. Hermes seemed like, whoa, you guys have got to see this. I don't know if he was coming at it from a dick perspective of like, yo, you got to see this, or was he coming at it from like, yo, dude, this is why you got to see this. But Athena saw it as a slight, as an embarrassment. But it's like, this is someone you had beef with. It's like, yeah, even Percy tried to spin it last episode, be like, oh, your mom will be proud of you. You took down one of her enemies that she had beef with, but why was that a slight? Because even Percy was like, I'm the one that mailed it, but it's like, yeah, but I co-signed it and I was okay with it. And it's like, she tried so hard to stay in her mom's group, but that's like, you doing that. Because all that Percy said was, hey, we can't just leave Medusa's head out and about. It could also be like, we send it to a place that it can be kept safe. And like, why would Athena have beef with that, Because maybe it's like, that's something you, a child, shouldn't get mixed up in. This is God stuff. You're a child. You shouldn't get mixed up in my business. Medusa's my situation to deal with. Maybe it's more so like, I wanted Medusa, because, the gods are petty. So for Athena, it's probably more so like, I wanted Medusa where she was. I needed her perpetually in punishment for yada yada, so on and so forth, instead of like, it's the pettiness there, and it's like, you petulant child, how dare you, like, once again, get mixed up in this god business when you have no place. Like, it feels like it's a little bit of that, which I'm curious if that's going to change Annabeth's view on her mom or not. But he tried to get us back to that point Percy had of like, why really care so much? So they're going to try and get away, but they get to the highest point. The plan was to try and get her away from other people, and Annabeth was going to sacrifice herself to stay behind to buy them time. But Percy did it instead. Because for him, it's like, I probably wasn't going to make it to Los Angeles anyway, but you guys, you can now. Because now it's into the point, like, because he even talks about it with Annabeth. It's like, right, like, I get your thing with your mom is your thing, but to me, like, me and my dad is like, my dad's never done anything for me. He's never been there for me. You have been there for me more in these past few days than my own dad. She's like, whoa, be careful now. You're almost making it sound like I'm becoming a friend. But in that moment, he stepped up and he was willing to sacrifice himself for Grover and Annabeth to finish things, and he faced the Chimera. Obviously didn't go the way he was hoping it would. And in fact, like, a hole gets punched into the floor and he's dangling for his life. I'm like, well, we do see water down below. And so Percy ends up falling. That's scary as shit, dude. Holy crap. That's a very, 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 very long fall. But then, like, some water sprouts up and grabs. Because I figured, like, well, if you're looking, well, I mean, there's plenty of non-water he could have slammed into. But some water shoots up and kind of, like, semi-gracefully knocks him into the water. And so a voice comes to him. Some creature's like, oh, like, your father sent me. Like, he's so proud of you, Percy. Just breathe. Which is so interesting because obviously it ties back to the beginning of the episode with his mom telling him to breathe, but him also telling his mom just, hey mom, breathe, calm down, it's going to be okay. So, because the voice almost sounded like his mom, so I don't know if it was something. At first I was like, is it going to be like a mermaid, a siren or something? Like, something was there sent by Poseidon. Like I said, it sounded like his mom. So I don't know if it was meant to, like, no, let me sound like your mom. The voice that would soothe you the most. That would be the most, one that you needed to hear. And so in that moment, he does breathe. He's able to breathe on the water. Am I conflating that with the movie? Didn't they have a scene? Or am I thinking of something else? I might be thinking of something else. I want to say it was the first movie. Wasn't there a thing where he was like in a swimming class and like he would like sit at the bottom of the pool because he was fine? I could have sworn that was a thing. I don't remember. I don't think that was like a scene in the second one. Like I said, it might have been in the first Percy Jackson movie, or maybe I'm conflating it with something completely different. I feel like I vaguely remember like some movie or something with a kid at the bottom of a like pool just sitting there. I mean, yeah, there's been. I think there was a Smallville episode or something like that. It was someone who had like a Meteor Freak storyline, but like but I don't think it was that. It was something else. Maybe it was Percy Jackson. I don't know. That's why I was kind of like, yeah, I knew you would breathe. I knew that would all kind of tie back together. But I mean, his dad did help him in this situation. But it's like, no, your dad's always there. He can't always help the way he wants to. But yeah, he sees you, Percy. And it's like, is your dad as benevolent as he makes it out to be, or is this more so a thing of, well, I need you to actually finish this quest? Does he actually believe that Percy can finish the quest? Because I remember Poseidon not being such a dick. Like I said, I don't remember that interaction fully from the movie. It's not that long of an interaction, but I think they have a decent enough interaction where it's like he's not the douchebag you kind of think he is. But like, you know, once again, it's the gods have their own plans, their own machinations, so it's like they're pulling the strings they want to. So it's like, oh, I saved you because, well, I need you alive. This is your quest. And hey, maybe I did do it because I actually do care. You are my child and I do watch over you. I have been there. You just don't always know I'm there. And I can't interfere the way I want to. I want you to be able to live your life. So maybe there's a little of that. Or maybe it's just, the pessimist in me being like, yeah, but there's probably a good chance you're just playing the odds and this is your best chance of like avoiding an all-out war. So it's like, I mean, it's for the greater good. So, but like, maybe it's about Percy, maybe it's about the greater good and not like clashing and going to war with one of your brothers. So I don't know. We'll see how that all plays out, where this ultimately ends up taking us. But we're not done with the Echidna and the Chimera. So probably going to end up crossing paths with. Did I also bring that? I think I forgot to bring that up earlier too, because I was like, wasn't there something else she made too? It was like, I might have brought it up earlier because I was bringing up the whole multi-headed thing. It was like, she also is the mother of the Hydra. I mean, once again, I'm sure that she's the mother of a lot of monsters. Well, they said it in the show, like she's the mother of all monsters when it comes to Greek mythology. But it's like, those are some like the big ones that I was like at least more familiar with, at least for my little quick Google search. So. But I'm interested to see where the next episode takes us. Another shortest episode was kind of interesting because I think the first one was kind of decently short. This past two have been like 40-some minutes, and now this one's back to being like 30-ish. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So once again, we're going to just be like, and once again, I think in general the Disney Plus shows are just like very like all over the place timeline-wise. Because I mean, it's like, once again, you don't have ads, so you don't have to worry about like making episodes so length long enough to actually have a certain number of ad breaks and stuff. So either way, that's neither here nor there. I'm interested to see where the next part of the story takes us. Once again, I avoided all the previews, so I don't even know fully what to expect next. So I'm excited to see where the next leg of this journey ends up taking our heroes after this, and how you contend with the Echidna and the Chimera. Do you just simply get away with that from them? I'm assuming you'd have to kind of deal with them sooner rather than later, but we'll see. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.